Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us. I can see lots of familiar faces trickling in from the waiting room, so thank you very much for that. Very pleased to welcome everyone to our Center for Practice Excellence speaker series today. Just as a brief introduction to our sessions, my name is Annalise Mathers, and I'm the administrator for our Center for Practice Excellence, which is based here at the Leslie Dan Faculty of Pharmacy at the University of Toronto. For those of you who might be joining us for the first time, we hold this monthly speaker series event, which takes place on the first Thursday of each month and features pharmacy education and training, research and practice and innovation. And these events are really where we get to learn from each other and discuss sort of critical issues impacting the future of healthcare and pharmacy. And as we all know, there are many right now. So just before we get started, I'd like to start by providing a land acknowledgement for the land I'm on here today at the University of Toronto. For thousands of years, it's been the traditional land of the Huron-Wendat, the Seneca, and the Mississaugas of the Credit. I recognize that this meeting place is still the home to many Indigenous people from across Turtle Island, and I'm very grateful to have the opportunity to work and learn with all of you on this land today and every day. So today we're very lucky to have Lee Dupuis and Beth Sproule joining us today to share some of their work. And we're also joined by Lisa Burry, who will be our discussant for today. As is the way for most of our speaker series sessions, we'll save the last 15 or 20 minutes for audience Q&A. So I'll just invite everyone online if there are questions that come to mind. Please put those into the chat at any point during Beth and Lee's presentation or during Lisa's comments, and we'll get to those towards the end of our session. I'd also like to just remind folks online that our sessions are recorded and posted to our CPE YouTube channel, as well as on the Leslie Dan Faculty of Pharmacy website. So if you want to rewatch this after, you can. Just before we get started, I'd like to provide a brief introduction for our speakers today. So Lee Dupuis, Lee completed her pharmacy training at the University of Toronto and also a PhD at the University of Amsterdam. She is an associate senior scientist at the Sick Kids Research Institute, as well as a clinical pharmacist at Sick Kids, where she works in the field of hematology, oncology, blood and marrow transplant, and cellular therapy. Thank you, Lee, that's a wonderful long title. Academically, Lee is a health systems clinician scientist at the Hospital for Sick Children's Department of Pharmacy and a professor and clinician scientist at the Leslie Dan Faculty of Pharmacy, University of Toronto. Beth Sproule is a clinician scientist at the Center for Addiction and Mental Health here in Toronto. She's an associate professor at the Leslie Dan Faculty of Pharmacy, University of Toronto, and is also cross-appointed to the Department of Psychiatry. Dr. Sproule completed a clinical residency and a postdoctoral research fellowship at the Addiction Research Foundation, which is now part of CAMH. And we're very lucky, together, Beth and Lee have developed and co-lead the Master of Science in Pharmacy program here at the Faculty of Pharmacy. Our discussant for today is Dr. Lisa Burry, who is a clinical pharmacy specialist at Mount Sinai Hospital and an assistant professor at the Leslie Dan Faculty of Pharmacy. Dr. Burry has extensive expertise in patient and drug safety in emergency, trauma, and critical care environments. Her research interests focus on delirium, sedation, analgesia, and chemical and physical restraint in the critical care unit. She's a member of the Canadian Critical Care Trials Group and is also a member of the Patient Safety Group of the Society of Critical Care Medicine. And she is a member of the Disaster Management Committees with the American College of Chest Physicians and the Society of Critical Care Medicine. All that to say, we are in very good hands for our discussion today, and I'd like to transition over to Lee and Beth to get us started. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Annalise. Okay, so I'm going to start our discussion today. And I want to start with just a very short history to kind of set the scene for the discussion and hopefully the good discussion we can have at the end with all of you. So a very short history of sort of pharmacy practice and U of T education in the pharmacy, at the Faculty of Pharmacy. is, decades ago, the first BScPhm program at the University of Toronto really had sort of a basic science and a dispensing focus. And that program lasted for quite a while. And the sort of evolution of pharmacy practice, though, did continue through that time. And as you may see on the clip of an editorial from Dr. Shirky from 1977, kind of heralds the advent of clinical pharmacy. So during that time, the clinical pharmacy, particularly in hospitals, was taking hold. And but it sort of had a long trajectory. The next change was around the 1990s with the advent of the pharmaceutical care practice model. And this is when the BScPhm program was adapted and changed to accommodate that. This is also when the US was considering changing their entry to practice program from a BSc level to an all PharmD entry to practice requirement. And so they had a long-standing post-baccalaureate graduate degree Doctor of Pharmacy program for several decades, actually. And so it was kind of a controversial and a very big decision during the 1990s on whether they should make that change. And I have a clip here just from another editorial from Dr. Levy, where, again, he was also sort of heralding the development of clinical practice in pharmacy and the value of that, and also questioning the need of the all PharmD entry to practice or not. So eventually, we also here at U of T also went to an all PharmD program, obviously, and that's the current program. So subsequently, it raises the question around advanced practice degrees in Canada. So previously, prior to the entry to Practice PharmD, it was sort of a well-recognized advanced degree was the post-bac PharmD that many of us undertook either in the US or then it became available in Canada as well. And it was generally considered an advanced clinical practice generalist type of degree and was recognized as essentially an advanced practice degree. Often it was undertaken following a residency program and some experience. And so the question really is now with the entry to Practice PharmD, what is an advanced degree, or what should advanced practice look like? So we've been having a lot of discussions around, is it having a specialist expertise? Is it having advanced scope of clinical practice? Is it having an advanced degree? So all of these sort of questions have been lingering for several years now, and there's no really official definition or formal designation for advanced practice pharmacy in Canada. So we thought we'd kind of look at what's happening elsewhere in the world just to kind of further set the scene for our discussion. So in the 2020 document from the International Pharmaceutical Federation, one of their goals and aspects that they identified was the need for a common and shared understanding of what is meant by specialization and advanced practice in the context of scope of practice and the responsible use of medicines. So this has been recognized as sort of a global issue around in the pharmacy area. In 2020, this paper was published that reflects a survey that took place in 2015 on that topic, doing a global survey around what was happening in various sectors around the world in relation to advanced practice, specialization in the pharmacy workforce. And really, it also demonstrated that there's various systems of advanced pharmacy practice and specialization. There's variations within terminology and definitions and frameworks. but they also highlighted, and what's been consistent throughout sort of discussions in this area is the need for distinguishing that there's an advanced practice that can have a broad scope or an advanced practice in a narrow scope, i.e. specialist roles. So not only sort of a specialist framing. So again, where are we in Canada now? There's, as I've said, there's no common definition or competencies. Most are not familiar with the previous post-bac PharmD advanced practice program that I mentioned. And so, for example, with the Entry to Practice PharmD program, there's often confusion with the term where all of the graduates have undergone an advanced practice experience in the APPE rotations in the undergraduate program. So there's no real educational achievement required or definition, and it's often employer dependent on sort of job titles and what they're looking for. So what's happening in other jurisdictions? And so we just did a brief kind of review over what's happening in some comparator countries, as well as within Canada for nursing as a healthcare professional. So in 2013, the Royal Pharmaceutical Society in the UK developed an advanced pharmacy framework where they developed different clusters and competencies of advanced practice. And the 6 clusters that they came up with, you'll see as we go through subsequent slides, kind of resonate, and there's a lot of overlap in how this has been sort of conceptualized. So areas around, of course, expert professional practice, collaborations, leadership, management, education, involvement in education, and research. But interestingly, subsequently, the NHS in the UK also came up with a multi-professional framework. And this is where they've kind of described core capabilities that apply across all advanced practice clinical roles, regardless of the health professional. So it's kind of an interesting concept where really they define it as, or to convey kind of the idea that professionals working at the level of advanced clinical practice can adapt to change, generate new knowledge, and apply it in different ways to formulate and problem solve within a context of complexity and uncertainty. And again, they outline 4 pillars, and you'll see some overlap around clinical practice, leadership management, education, and research as all being part of advanced practice. In Australia, they also have a document within their sort of competency standards framework where they define advanced level practice for pharmacy. And here it's defined as a practice, can be described as a practice that is so significantly different from that achieved at initial registration that it warrants recognition by professional peers and the public. And the expertise of the practitioner and the education, training, and experience associated with that. It's also interesting that they also said that the professional practice is also viewed as a continuum where the individual pharmacist can move from point of entry in the profession towards advanced practice by acquiring expertise through all the means available to them. So a fairly broad kind of statement. But I just wanted to highlight that also here, they've also delineate between kind of regular practice and advanced practice, recognizing both those who are working within a broad scope or a narrow scope of practice. In the US, there was a recent paper that was quite interesting where they described the implementation of an advanced practice pharmacist designation in California in what they call kind of a tiered licensure system. So moving this into sort of an actual regulation or legislative designations for a different level of pharmacy practice. And so here the APH designation in California was created several years ago, and it was awarded to pharmacists who meet certain criteria, and that this designation unlocks additional practice authorities. So the requirements for this were to either need 2 out of 3 of the following: to complete a postgraduate residency through a postgraduate institution, that they need to possess a current certification in a relevant specific area of practice, and then also provide 1,500 hours of clinical expertise under a collaborative practice agreement, showing their competencies in that area. Interestingly, in this paper, they summarize that the pharmacists who have undertaken this don't report really benefiting from this designation, specifically as it relates to an expanded scope of practice. But they also mentioned that 3 other states, Montana, New Mexico, and North Carolina, also created a tiered sort of pharmacist license, for example, called pharmacy clinician or clinical pharmacist practitioner. However, those programs also had low uptake. So I think kind of reviewing those experiences was also important to see what the drivers of that sort of summary outcomes, to see if that is anything that could be pursued or stay away from. So then switching to nursing, in Canada, they have a very clear kind of pan-Canadian framework for advanced practice nursing. And in this case, advanced practice nursing includes both nurse specialists and clinical nurse specialists and nurse practitioners. And so the objective of this framework was to promote a common understanding amongst everybody of what advanced practice nursing was, to have consistency in the role definition, to develop educational curricula, concepts, identifying concepts for research, and shaping decisions and policies. Specifically, the definition is nurse practitioners they integrate graduate nursing educational preparation with in-depth specialized clinical nursing knowledge and expertise in complex decision-making to meet needs. They outline a number of activities, so analyzing and synthesizing knowledge, critiquing and interpreting theory, participating in research from nursing, using their advanced clinical competencies, and developing and accelerating nursing knowledge in the profession as a whole. So again, sort of aspects of the profession, not just including clinical competence or clinical expertise, but broader criteria as well. And I'd also want to just specifically highlight that they indicate that it's a combination of graduate nursing and clinical expertise, and that the Canadian Association of Schools of Nursing have created a nursing education framework where they outline the core expectations for master's programs. They clarify how these degrees add value. They integrate the national guidelines, integrate into professional and academic expectations, and offering direction in nursing programs and curricula. So again, just sort of bookending this, really reflecting, so compared to other jurisdictions and what's going on here, what is advanced pharmacy practice in Canada today? Is it having a specialist expertise? Is it having an advanced degree? Is it influencing the health of populations through practice research? Is it guiding professional development of pharmacists? Or does it also include advancing the scope of pharmacy practice? So just reflecting on that and keeping in mind that other jurisdictions have defined advanced practice, do have delineated competencies, and have established education frameworks. So now I'm going to pass it over to Lee. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Beth. So Beth and I, together with Zubin Austin and Lisa Dolovich, have drafted a definition, a straw dog, if you will, of advanced practice. And here it is. To rephrase it a bit, an advanced pharmacy practitioner creates, synthesizes, and disseminates new information about pharmacy practice with the goal of meeting patient needs and health system needs. This is very, very much a work in progress, and we hope to have the opportunity to hone and refine it, change it up entirely maybe, in discussions with you today and with other Canadian pharmacists in the near future. Let's be a little bit more granular. So you heard from Beth that among other jurisdictions where advanced pharmacy practice has been defined, there are really 4 common pillars of practice that you hear resonate again and again: practice, research, education, and leadership. So we're going to just walk through these pillars. When you look at this list, I'm hoping that a few things pop out at you. First, there is an expectation that an advanced pharmacy practitioner is a medication therapy expert, that they integrate emerging scientific data into their practice, that they lead teams within pharmacy, multidisciplinary, interprofessional teams, and they take a programmatic approach to practice. So they plan, coordinate, implement, and evaluate, reevaluate programs so that patient needs are met. In terms of research, advanced pharmacy practitioners offer new knowledge and insight that informs pharmacy practice and addresses patient needs. Advanced pharmacy practitioners see the gaps and, importantly, act to fill those gaps. Education. Advanced pharmacy practitioners may be formal educators or informal educators. They may guide by example or guide as mentors. They may develop curricula for pharmacy and for other students. But I think key to this is that advanced pharmacy practitioners communicate ideas and communicate science well. Leadership, of course, infuses everything about advanced pharmacy practice. Advanced pharmacy practitioners are leaders within the pharmacy community, within their clinical specialty, within their area of research. Of course, each individual advanced pharmacy practitioner has elements of these 4 pillars of advanced practice. They may emphasize some and de-emphasize others, and that emphasis may change over time, and I think that is to be expected. So with these characteristics in mind, what training is available for would-be advanced pharmacy practitioners, and what training should be available? Since there's no commonly understood definition of advanced practice, I guess it's not surprising that there's no one path to becoming an advanced pharmacy practitioner, at least not at the moment. There are many, many different paths. But we can divide them into 2 categories, roughly. One is pharmacy-centric, and the other is domain-centric. So in the pharmacy-centric category, you may place year 2 pharmacy residency programs or graduate degrees such as the MScPhm program at I almost said Sick Kids, but at the University of Toronto, and as well the professional diploma in specialized pharmaceutical care offered at l'Université Laval. Other graduate degrees are available that really will inform pharmacy practice, certainly, and many pharmacists today have graduate degrees in many different domains. I've listed a few common domains here. There may be advantages to taking one route over the other. I would say that, in my opinion, a pharmacy-centric approach preserves the central thread of pharmacy practice, so that if your intention is to become an advanced pharmacy practitioner, I think you're well served in a pharmacy-centric program. And in fact, these programs ideally would give you training in all the components of advanced pharmacy practice. A corollary to perhaps the amorphous training that's available for advanced pharmacy practitioners at the moment is the wide variability in career paths. And ordinarily you'd say, wonderful, there are all kinds of positions that an individual with advanced practice training has at their fingertips. But I think this lack of clarity hampers the opportunities, in fact. So while there may be various career paths in all settings where pharmacists can contribute, the fact that there is nothing concrete or obvious makes it very employer dependent and difficult to navigate, I think, for graduates of advanced pharmacy programs. So you may think automatically in patient care settings of clinician scientists, maybe clinician educators, in other settings, in academia, clinical faculty, in industry or government, program directors. But whatever the setting, advanced pharmacy practitioners need roles that allow them to exercise all the skills that they have to offer. Their skills in clinical care, teaching, research, and practice development. And I believe it's important for employers to create these positions so that advanced pharmacy practitioners can thrive and contribute optimally to our profession. I feel that Canadian pharmacy is at a crossroads, and amidst all the chaos that we're living through today, we have a collective decision to make. Do we continue as is, or do we make a decision to do some work? Continuing as is, I think, runs the risk of frustrating pharmacists, both pharmacists with advanced practice training who don't feel that they can exercise their skill set, and frustration on the part of pharmacists who do other roles or perform other roles because of the clash maybe of expectations. Another risk is the potential stagnation of the profession. Who is going to lead us into the future? Who is going to respond to all the needs and practice challenges that the future will bring? I think that's a very real risk. The benefits of advancing advanced pharmacy practitioners are many. These are the people who will sustain practice innovation and advancement, and will allow us to react nimbly to practice challenges in the future. So in order to really benefit from advanced pharmacy practitioners, we as a profession need to do the work required to define advanced practice and to develop the training programs and the professional roles for advanced pharmacy practitioners. At the end of this presentation, with apologies, we have more questions than we have answers. We hope to begin discussions today on this topic, and we'll begin by asking you, and maybe Lisa too, does our working definition of advanced practice align with yours? Do you think we need standardized core criteria for advanced pharmacy practitioner training? Are the educational opportunities that are available for would-be advanced pharmacy practitioners sufficient, both in number and in quality? And how can we better articulate the possible roles and career paths for advanced pharmacy practitioners? I want to say thank you to everyone in the audience for listening, and also acknowledge the contributions of Dr. Dolovich and Dr. Austin, as well as our students and colleagues who have heard us rant and have participated in these rants with us. It all comes together, and hopefully we'll be able to answer some of these questions in the near future.
Thanks so much, Lee and Beth. That was fantastic. I'll maybe invite you to leave that second last slide up, just to give our audience a few questions to ponder, and then also if that sparks anything for Lisa. But Lisa, I'll turn it over to you now to just get us started with some comments and reflections on what Beth and Lee have discussed.
Thank you both. That was exceptional at describing, I think, where we are and trying to distill where we need to go. And as an individual with a very long career as well, and not a linear one, I think this speaks to how pharmacy has to remorph over time. I think one of the early slides that you showed, the transition from the 50s to the 90s, the 90s to 2010, and where we are now. We think of individuals who shaped the profession. And when you guys asked me to participate in this, I was like, I don't even really know what an advanced practitioner is. So that's a problem. It's a problem that I don't know what it is. If I reflect on my career, people that shaped and drove the profession were novel. They were innovative. They set to bridge a connection with not only the patient, but other professionals. They sought to bring the level of education higher so that the practice at the bedside or counter was much more advanced. And I think we're at the point now we need to figure out what's next, because we kind of done a lot and we've morphed into a very different animal than we were in 1994 when I crossed the bridge. So we're a very different animal, and the advance needs to be redefined. What I don't know is what advance really means in the current milieu, and how that training needs to be different, because truly an advanced practitioner means a level that is completely different than the entry point. If the entry point is being able to perform a set of skills and a set of expectations clinically then the advanced needs to be redefined. Maybe we need to be controversial and ask, do we still need advanced practice people? I hope we argue that we do. We still need to morph and grow as the next 20 to 40 years of this program or our profession. And we need those individuals who are cutting edge, novel drivers of the profession. They need to be identified, they need to be trained, and they need to be rewarded. And the reward may come in different forms, as you mentioned, whether that is kudos and acknowledgement, salary, the job that is catered and to support that advancement and growth. I think your definition did speak to me. In my head, I struggled with advanced practitioner. To me, kind of follows like a nurse clinician or an advanced nurse practitioner practice. I saw that as different than being a clinician scientist or researcher, which is a little bit, maybe they have features that overlap, but I didn't see them as identical. It may be advanced practice, but slight, but different. And often clinician scientists have less practice because they've morphed into a chunk of their daily activities to be a researcher. I think it's exciting and novel and absolutely essential for this work to be done.
Great, thank you so much.
That's my
Susan. Yeah. No, I think you raised a lot of excellent points for us to consider. I'll invite our audience members, if any of these questions are speaking to you. I think Lee and Beth are comfortable if you would like to use the raise hand function and unmute yourself if there's any additional comments on any of these questions that you'd perhaps like to provide feedback on. Just while we're doing that, I'll just let Kaden. Thank you so much. I think those comments are really essential. Lisa, I particularly appreciated your comments sort of around seeing some similarities or parallels between nurse practitioner and advanced pharmacy practitioner. I think that word is quite interesting. My background is actually in public health. And for a while, that was also being used, a public health practitioner. And I think that there's a really interesting element of to what degree does the practice come into play with this. So I just appreciate your point on that.
Can I make one additional point? I think there needs to be clarification that the advanced practice is not the location.
Yes.
It's not the expertise, like the content area. Because you work in a specialty clinic, you are not automatically advanced. You just happen to work there. Because you work in an ICU does not make you an advanced practitioner. It is the individual's skill set and contributions. I think we need to separate that a bit from this place versus the person.
To me, the what you just said, Lisa, is a function of clinical specialization in and of itself is not advanced practice. And superb clinical skills are not advanced practice. If you think of it as a Venn diagram, it's certainly a piece, but alone, no. And again, this is just my opinion. So I really like to hear dissenting opinions, actually, but I wanted to make a point about the nurse practitioner and advanced nursing specialist. That's not the right terminology, but advanced nurses is they've chosen an umbrella term, right? Advanced practice nursing. So that's an umbrella term that incorporates the nurse practitioner as well as the nurse specialist, the clinical nurse specialist. And the nurse practitioner role is distinct only because of regulations. So the regulatory piece allows a nurse practitioner to prescribe, but they've chosen to include clinical nurse specialists as advanced practice nurses, which I think is an interesting way of approaching this.
Yeah, I'll just follow up on that, because in their document, it's interesting how they've kind of distinguishing, they have a figure actually that debating whether to include it or not, that distinguishes the clinical nurse specialist from the nurse practitioner roles. And they've put them together because all of the domains apply to both, but how they distinguish it is that the clinical practice role is really much more dominant in the nurse practitioner, and they have the clinical nurse specialist much more embedded in the advanced nursing practice. So with professional development, organizational leadership, research, and education. And so that's kind of sort of that question that has come up within their group, and they indicate that this is one framing that they're now pursuing, that it's sort of a different emphasis on, they include all the domains, but with a different emphasis in the two groups. Don't hear you, Annalise. Don't know if it's just me.
No, I think I bet dollars to donuts that Annalise is trying to read the chat.
Yes.
So
Oh, now I can hear you.
oh, now we can hear you.
Okay. Well, you read my mind. I was
Oh,
trying to read
it's
the
very
question in the chat.
yeah.
Just a question from Suzanne, who's curious if you have any thoughts on whether the corporatization of community pharmacy and maybe just broader trends in the community pharmacy environment at large influences the profession's willingness to support advanced practice roles.
I'd love to hear from you, Suzanne, about your thoughts on this, because this is an area where I'm not entitled to have any opinion at all. So I think we need to reach out to ambulatory and community practitioner or pharmacists to hear exactly what their experience is.
I guess I'd like to say that there is definitely so much scope and innovation happening in community pharmacies, and it's great to see. You know, I go back to my pharmacist at a community pharmacy, and I was, you know, so I know what community pharmacy practice was like in the 1970s in high school when I was working there through, you know, the subsequent decades. And there's so much potential, and there's a lot of really innovative community pharmacy practitioners there. And I think it would be great if this could be supported regardless of who owns the pharmacy. But I anticipate some challenges there. Yeah.
I'm sort of curious. Lisa Dolovich and I have a few students who are working with us right now who are on this call, and I know there's some other folks, but maybe if they have any thoughts, I'll invite them to share. But I'm really curious just about, you know, as you continue to sort of mull over this definition, thoughts about the different components. I'm really curious about the thought of emerging pharmacy professionals on this topic, and sort of, you know, similar to Suzanne's comment, there's a lot of dynamics that are going on and are at play in the pharmacy sector right now. So maybe Beth and Lee, I'm curious if you've had any feedback from emerging pharmacy professionals on where this work is right now and where it might go.
I would have to say that, you know, back to one of my slides is that there's just there's confusion, like they don't know, like the young. So for example, when I am at a conference promoting our MScPhm program, which we developed as an advanced practice program at U of T, you know, pharmacists coming to the booth didn't know what I meant by advanced practice pharmacists. So I think there's just a real disconnect on what the meaning is, what it would be from younger pharmacists. And I think it is because it hasn't been talked about. It hasn't been, and as I said, they've all had advanced pharmacy practice experiences in their undergrad degrees. So I think trying to for those who then have been in practice and can kind of see others who are advanced practitioners and maybe see some of the differences or perhaps that will help. But I think that is part of the problem, is that, yeah, it's not being discussed, and whether it's a problem or not. Yeah.
Can I be controversial for a minute?
Please.
I'm not usually controversial. Do we think some of this is driven by titles? So if we think of our career path for people who have been a pharmacist for a number of years, the entry point was a BSc. And to come back as an advanced practitioner, we meant going back to school, generally, either post-bac, PharmD, residency, and so on. And now we're at a point where the entry point is the PharmD, and it's relabeling, relanguaging what the advanced piece is. Well, I'm already a doctorate.
Exactly.
So maybe labels on things are confusing the picture. That may be controversial to many. I really liked one slide you had. It talked, I think it was about, well, I guess California, New Mexico, and a number of places who attempted, and it didn't really bite. It didn't really take off. And I'm really interested as to the why. I wonder if these people just don't exist. You can't have uptake if people don't exist either. They have to be around to actually fill the jobs. And
they have to be around, and there have to be jobs. And I think a lot of it, or some of it, is labeling, as you say, Lisa. There need to be positions for these people where they are valued, remunerated, rewarded for the advanced practice skills that they bring to the job. And I suspect, well, in many instances, people have gone to the trouble of acquiring this designation, and it's really not changed anything about their lives at all.
I wonder if they get absorbed into places that have value on that, which is faculties. Mm-hmm. So their advanced practice is being attracted to faculties because, let's face it, the schools will want to establish. And so they may move from a community setting or a hospital setting because they can't get either the resources or the title or the salary or the whatnot, the scope of practice. So they move to a faculty position. So that's where they are. And they're not necessarily labeled the same way anymore because they're labeled as a faculty member.
No, perhaps.
So
who's, oh, sorry, Beth, go ahead.
I was just going to say that the trajectory for faculty positions has also changed over time. And there's an expectation for actual faculty positions to have a PhD, which is another kind of a different direction for kind of advanced practice. So if there's just it's something else to consider. Mm-hmm.
So whose responsibility is it to ensure that pharmacy's future continues to be full of advancement and richness? Whose responsibility is that? Is it faculty's responsibility? Is professional associations? Is it colleges? Is it government? Everyone's.
It's hard to say everyone's because it's very hard to get us all to move in unison. If we look at nursing, nursing is, I think, a beautiful example of a relatively cohesive group and trying to standardize where they are into different pieces of or different platforms. Who would do that for us? I see CPHA as something different than CSHP. Like I don't see them as an
Yeah.
who was the pinnacle. And these things cost more money. These people cost more money. So obviously employers are not necessarily going to want to do that, or maybe they do, but they're going to have to be convinced that these people that cost more money are saving something or offering something.
Yeah. I think there are two things in the chat that are pertinent here. How does advanced pharmacy practice need to be marketed or promoted to all our various constituencies? And along very similarly, in terms of marketing, for sure, advanced practitioners and titles, right? And aligning those titles with education, experience, and role scope. And yeah, I think it really a discussion with many different players would be helpful.
I think
Yeah.
The comments in the chat are excellent. I also appreciate, Connie, your comment just about.
Sorry, Annalise, we can't hear you.
But just barely, like you were faint, that was all.
Is it working? No, it's not working. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, faintly.
Okay, my microphone.
Yeah.
Anything? Oh.
Yep. Complex therapeutics, patient care, system navigation is all complicated. Yes, I agree. The issue is whether we have any vision as a profession to advocate for this. And I think Suzanne is saying that many pharmacists are demoralized or have lost confidence in our advocacy organizations.
It's just, I don't know if my microphone's working. No.
Not really.
Wow. Okay.
I don't know, maybe if you speak, you'd have to almost shout, I think, for us to.
Well, my voice is pretty loud, so
That works.
That's better, yep.
hopefully that'll work. Not really great for moderating this. One last question maybe, and then we'll think about closing up for the day. Just from Simon in the chat about pharmacy positions being directly tied to revenue, and if that could influence the decision to pursue advanced training, in addition to perhaps an undergraduate degree and the PharmD that is traditional right now.
Yeah. I think people have to look at return on investment. And there is some personal gratification for education, but not everyone can spend the money just to for that personal education if it's not going to translate into higher career satisfaction or higher remuneration later on. So I think I think that's a very important consideration.
That's great. I'm hoping you can still hear me here. Maybe one last thought that I just like to pose is with the sort of areas you mentioned, Lee, education, research, leadership, there's a part of me that feels like those are all incredibly important, but also that expertise in each of those areas takes time. You know, I guess I can speak more from the research lens, but you know, it takes time to develop those skills as well as leadership and management. And I think that that's just also an important consideration, perhaps for someone coming out of a PharmD program and thinking about pursuing an advanced pharmacy practice degree, and sort of back to Connie's points, just the domains of expertise that are required with that. Okay, while my microphone is working, I'm going, sorry, Lee, go ahead. If you
I
have
just
anything
wanted to say
say.
thank you to Lori. We'll investigate that the program that she's pointing to as something to review and potentially emulate.
Yeah, I think that's great to get yeah, practitioners out there involved in research and teaching, etc. More. Yeah, that'd be a good suggestion.
Okay, well, I would like to thank our audience online just for joining us and providing your comments and questions. Beth and Lee, thank you so much for providing us with a very detailed presentation and lots to mull over and take away from today. And Lisa, I'd also like to thank you for your great insights and controversial and otherwise comments on today's presentation. Very much appreciated. Thank you everyone for joining. Our next CPE session will be in mid-March on the 25th on specialty medicines and patient support programs. And then we also have some exciting programming in April and May on artificial intelligence, as well as diversity considerations in pharmacy practice. So thanks everyone for joining us. I hope you all take care, and we hope to see you at an event in the future. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thank you.